It started with a letter, a simple white envelope with my name on it. At first, I thought it was some sort of promotion or a bill. But when I opened it, my heart sank. Penalty notice. Unapproved vehicle in driveway. I read the letter twice, then a third time. Was this a prank? I didn't have any unapproved vehicle in my driveway. The only thing there was my helicopter. Yeah, you heard that right. A helicopter. Before you think I'm some wealthy guy showing off, let me explain. I worked for the state governor. My job involved a lot of rapid trips between cities, and sometimes driving wasn't an option. The governor himself authorized my use of a state-owned helicopter. It wasn't extravagant, just a simple black chopper parked in my private driveway away from the street. Apparently the homeowner association didn't approve. I crumpled the letter and tossed it on the table. Homeowner association rules were absurd, but I had never expected them to target me. Then my doorbell rang. I opened the door. To see her, Karen, everyone in the neighborhood knew. Her short blonde hair, sunglasses pushed up on her head, a costly-looking blouse, and that signature smug expression. She wasn't just a homeowner association member, she was the homeowner association president. You got our letter? She said, arms folded. Yeah, I replied, forcing a smile. I don't think it applies to me. It applies to everyone, she snapped. No helicopters in the neighborhood. It's an eyesore. It's state property, I said, keeping my voice steady. I work for the governor. He authorized it. Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. I don't care who you work for. This is my neighborhood, and I set the rules. I could feel my patience slipping. I pay my mortgage like everyone else. I don't need your approval? She smiled, a slow, knowing smile that sent a chill down my spine. We'll see about that, she said, turning on her heels and walking away. Something about the way she said it didn't sit well with me. The next morning, I stepped outside and stopped in my track. My helicopter was covered in bright orange stickers. Violation. Remove immediately. Homeowner association warning. I clenched my fist. I ripped the stickers off and went straight to Karen's house. She answered the door with a smug grin. Morning, she chirped. I held up the crumpled stickers. You did this? She shrugged. Homeowner association protocol. If you refuse to follow the rules, we take action. I took a deep breath. Karen, this is unlawful. You can't just. I can and I will. She interrupted. You have 1 week to remove that thing, or we will. She slammed the door in my face. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I pulled out my phone. It was time to make some calls. The next few days were stressful. I kept an eye on my helicopter. At all times, I knew Karen wasn't bluffing. Then it happened. I woke up to a loud crash. I ran outside and my stomach dropped. My helicopter was wrecked. The windshield was shattered. The tail was bent sideways. The rotor blades were twisted beyond repair. And in the middle of the wreckage was a massive tow truck, its mechanical arm still attached to the chopper. I turned to see Karen standing, arms folded, looking proud. I couldn't breathe. You did this? My voice was barely above a whisper. She smirked. I warned you. The tow truck driver looked uneasy. She said she had legal authority. I didn't hear the rest. My world was spinning. My state-owned helicopter was ruined, and Karen had no idea what was about to happen. I didn't say a word to Karen. I walked back inside, locked the door, and called the governor. He picked up on the second ring. Sir, I said, trying to stay composed. We have a problem. 30 minutes later, 4 black SUVs entered the neighborhood. The governor's security team stepped out first, followed by the governor himself. Karen's grin vanished. Who's responsible for this? The governor's firm. Voice boomed. Karen swallowed. Sir, this man. The governor cut her off. This man is my employee. That helicopter was government property, and you wrecked it. Karen took a step back. I didn't realize. Did you ask? The governor shot back. Karen opened her mouth, but no words came out. The neighbors had gathered. Some were whispering, others were filming. The governor turned to me. File charges. Karen's face turned white. But it's my neighborhood, she stammered. Not anymore, the governor said coldly. Karen collapsed. Police arrived within moments. Karen was interrogated, her power taken away. The homeowner association board turned against her instantly. Turns out Karen had been misusing homeowner association funds for years. Once the inquiry started, the truth came out. The governor's legal team managed everything. Karen lost everything: her position, her money, her dignity, and the best part, my helicopter was substituted with an even bigger one. A week later, stood in my driveway as my new helicopter arrived. Karen, now a nobody, watched from her window. I smirked. Justice had been served. Karen thought she controlled the neighborhood. She thought she could do whatever she pleased. But in the end, she messed with the wrong person. And she faced the consequences. The homeowner association had a new leader. Now, the rules were reasonable. The neighborhood was peaceful again. And Karen? She was just a bad memory. For a while, things were calm. The homeowner association was under new administration. My helicopter sat safely in my driveway, and Karen had disappeared from view. But something told me this wasn't finished. And I was right. One evening, as I returned home, noticed a figure standing by my driveway. It was Karen. Her hair was untidy, her eyes hollow. She didn't look like the proud, arrogant woman who once controlled this neighborhood. She looked hopeless. "You ruined my life," she spat. I crossed my arms. "You did that to yourself. You don't understand," she said, stepping closer. "I had authority. I governed this neighborhood. I made the rules. And you destroyed everything." I sighed. "You destroyed my helicopter first. Remember that." She clenched her fist. "I didn't know it belonged to the governor." I smirked. "That's the issue. Karen, you never asked before you acted." Her face contorted with rage. "I'll get my authority back. You'll see." I shook my head. "No, you won't. You're prohibited from the homeowner association. You lost your job. You're lucky you're not in prison." Her eyes darted to the helicopter. "They gave you a larger one," she muttered almost to herself. I saw something in her expression that made my stomach tighten. Karen wasn't finished, and I had a bad feeling about what was coming next. That night, I barely rested. Something about Karen's expression disturbed me. And sure enough, the next morning, my worst nightmare became real. As I stepped outside, I smelled burning. My heart pounded as I rushed toward the driveway. My helicopter, my brand new, state-issued helicopter, was in flames. Fire curled around the tail, thick black smoke rising into the sky. Neighbors gathered, gasping in shock. Someone was already calling the fire department, and standing there, just a few feet away, was Karen, holding a gas can. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. She did it. She actually did it. Before I could react, 2 police cars arrived. Officers jumped out, weapons raised. "Drop the can," one of them commanded. Karen didn't move. Her lips curled into a grin. "Now nobody gets to have authority. Put it down." She laughed, a wild, unstable laugh. Then she ran, but she didn't get far. An officer tackled her to the ground. The gas can spilled, but it was vacant now. They wrestled her hands behind her back and snapped on the handcuffs. It was over. Karen was arrested on the spot. This time she wasn't just facing a homeowner association dispute. She was facing arson accusations. And this time she was going to prison. The fire department arrived quickly and put out the flames. My helicopter was harmed, but not beyond repair. I watched as Karen was shoved into the back of the police car. Her eyes locked onto mine, filled with pure rage. "You think this is over?" she hissed. I didn't respond. I just watched as the car pulled away, taking her out of my life for good. The neighborhood cheered the new home. Owner Association president personally apologized. Even the governor called me to make sure I was okay. Karen's trial was swift. She had no money for a lawyer, and the evidence was undeniable. She was sentenced to 10 years in jail. Justice was finally served. And I got a 3rd helicopter. Months passed, and the neighborhood finally felt stable again. No more Karen, no more trouble. One afternoon, as I stood in my driveway, a neighbor walked up to me. "Hey," he said, glancing at the helicopter, "ever think about relocating?" I chuckled. "Why would I? I love it here." He laughed. "Just checking. You never know when another Karen might appear." I smirked. Let them try. I thought it was over. Karen was locked up. The neighborhood was peaceful. My helicopter was safe. But I should have known better. One evening, as I parked my car in the driveway, phone buzzed with a notification. Unknown caller. I almost ignored it. Almost. But something told me to pick up. I swiped the screen. Hello? A slow, familiar voice came through the speaker. Miss me? I froze. My grip on the phone tightened. It was Karen. That was unbelievable. She was supposed to be in jail for 10 years. You sound shocked, she said, chuckling. Good behavior, shortened sentence. I'm out. My stomach twisted. She shouldn't have been calling me. You have a restraining order, I said, keeping my voice firm. Oh, I know, she purred. But I just wanted to let you know I haven't forgotten about you. The call ended. I stared at my phone, heart pounding. Karen was back. And this time, I had no idea what she was planning. At first, nothing happened. Days passed. Then weeks. No Karen, no strange occurrences. Nothing. Maybe she was bluffing. Maybe she just wanted to frighten me. But then little things started happening. One morning, I walked outside and noticed a single bright orange homeowner association violation sticker on my helicopter. The same kind of sticker Karen had used before. My blood ran cold. The new homeowner association president swore they hadn't issued any violations that night. My security cameras malfunctioned. The footage cut out for exactly 10 minutes right around 2 a.m. The next morning, my trash cans were overturned. Their contents scattered across my yard. Coincidence? No, this was Karen. I called the police, but without solid proof, there wasn't much they could do. Keep an eye out. The officer told me if she violates the restraining order, call us immediately. I nodded, but deep down I knew one thing. Karen wasn't finished with me yet. It happened on a stormy night. I was locking up when I heard a creak from outside. I turned toward my driveway, and there she was. Karen stood under the street light, an umbrella shielding her from the rain. Her eyes gleamed with something wild. I didn't move. You're trespassing, I said, my voice firm. She smiled. I just came to talk. I reached for my phone. I'm calling the police. Her smile didn't fade. You won't. I hesitated. She stepped closer. You think you won? That you destroyed me? Her voice was cold, resentful. No, you just delayed me. I clenched my jaw. What do you want, Karen? She tilted her head. I want my authority back. She reached into her coat pocket. My heart pounded. Was it a weapon? A document? A new plan? I didn't wait to find out. I took a step back and dialed 911. Karen smirked. Oh, now you call the cops. I didn't say a word. She pulled out a single piece of paper and tossed it at my feet. Then she turned and disappeared into the night. I picked up the paper, my hands trembling. It was a legal notice. Karen was suing me for defamation. The lawsuit was absurd. Karen claimed I had ruined her reputation and lied about her actions. Never mind the helicopter she destroyed or the arson she committed. But I wasn't worried. The governor's legal team took over instantly. Karen had no chance. The court dismissed her lawsuit within minutes. But Karen, she refused to accept failure. One night, I got another call. Enjoy your triumph, she whispered. Because one day, when you least expect it, I'll be back. Click. The call ended. And just like that, Karen was gone. No more calls, no more warnings, no more lawsuit. Did she move away? Did she surrender? I don't know, but I do know one thing. Some people never change. And if Karen ever returns, I'll be ready. Months passed and things finally started to feel normal again. No more late night calls. No more sabotage. No more Karen. But I never let my guard down. Karen wasn't the type to disappear forever. And I was right. One evening, as I was finishing up some work in my home office, a notification popped up on my phone. Motion detected driveway camera. I froze. I tapped the notification and opened the live feed. At first, I saw nothing. Just the soft glow of my driveway lights and the quiet street beyond. But then I noticed it. A shadow. Someone stood just out of sight, hiding behind the bushes near the edge of my property. My blood turned cold. Was it Karen? I grabbed my phone and dialed the police. 911. "What's your emergency? There's someone outside my house. I think it's a trespasser." The operator took my address and assured me they would send a patrol car immediately. I stayed inside watching the camera feed, heart racing. Minutes passed. Then suddenly, the shadow moved. A figure stepped into the light. It wasn't Karen. It was a man. I had never seen him before. He wore a dark hoodie, his hands tucked into his pockets. But then, he looked straight into the camera. A chill ran down my spine. He wasn't just some random trespasser. He knew I was watching. And then slowly, he reached into his hoodie pocket just as the police car turned onto my street. The man fled. The officers jumped out, yelling for him to stop, but he vanished into the night. I stood there staring at the screen, my hands shaking. This wasn't random. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a message. Karen wasn't acting alone anymore. The police searched the area, but found nothing. The man was gone. I explained everything to the officers. The past incidents with Karen, the threats, the lawsuit, the restraining order. They took my statement and promised to increase patrols in the area. But that didn't make me feel any safer. The next morning, I woke up to find another note taped to my front door. "You took everything from me. Now, it's my turn." No signature, no name, but I knew exactly who it was from Karen. And now, she wasn't just coming after me alone. She had assistance. I wasn't just dealing with the homeowner association nightmare anymore. I was in real danger. I wasn't going to sit back and wait for Karen's next move. She had already wrecked my property, tried to burn down my helicopter, and sent people to frighten me. Enough was enough. I took the note inside and examined it carefully. The handwriting was different from Karen's old letters. Messier. Rushed. Whoever wrote this wasn't Karen, which meant she really did have someone else working with her. But who and why? I called the police again and handed them the note. They promised to run a check for fingerprints, but I wasn't hopeful. Karen was clever, and if she had someone helping her, they were probably just as cautious. Still, I wasn't going to just wait for another attack. I installed more security cameras inside and outside my house, motion sensors, smart locks, floodlights. I even hired a private investigator to look into Karen's activities since she got out of jail. And that's when I got my first clue. Karen wasn't just living in the city, she was working at a small law office downtown. A law office. She was trying to regain her power. And worse, one of her co-workers had a criminal background. His name was Daniel Carter, 35 years old. 2 years in prison for fraud and intimidation. Recently hired at the same firm where Karen worked. And based on his history, he had a pattern of targeting people through threats. My stomach tightened. I had no doubt that this was the man who had stood outside my house that night. But why was Karen paying him? Blackmailing him? Or had she somehow convinced him that I was the enemy? I needed to find out. That's when I got a call. It was the private investigator. "You're not going to believe this," he said, "but Karen's law office, it's filing lawsuits against multiple people in your neighborhood." I gripped my phone harder. What kind of lawsuits? Property disputes, harassment claims, even some homeowner association violations. And guess what? Every single case involves people who supported you against Karen. My blood boiled. This wasn't just about revenge. Karen was trying to legally ruin everyone who stood against her. She wasn't just coming for me. She was coming for the whole neighborhood. And I had to stop her. I met with the new homeowner association president and several neighbors who had been targeted. One of them, Mrs. Rodriguez, showed me the lawsuit Karen's firm had filed against her. It was ridiculous. They were accusing her of violating property rules on her own land. Another neighbor, Mr. Patel, was being sued for harassment because he had called the police on Karen once. And the worst part, some people were afraid. They didn't have the money to fight these lawsuits. And that's exactly what Karen wanted. She wanted to bankrupt them, to silence them, to take back control. But she had miscalculated something. Me, I had friends in high positions. I made a few calls to the governor's office, to a few high-profile lawyers I knew. And then I sued Karen's law office. Not just for harassment, not just for fraud, but for conspiracy. This wasn't just about some old homeowner association dispute anymore. This was organized legal warfare, and Karen was about to lose everything. The lawsuit hit Karen's law office hard. Within a week, 3 of their biggest clients abandoned them. Within 2 weeks, Daniel Carter was fired and under investigation for threats against multiple residents. Within a month, Karen herself was forced to step down. But I wasn't done. I wanted Karen to understand what it felt like to be completely helpless. So I went one step further. I gathered every single neighbor she had targeted. Together, we filed a class action lawsuit against her. We had proof, witnesses, years of her mistreatment. And this time, she had no way out. When the court date came, Karen sat in the defendant's chair, looking small. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the one in command. I stood up and looked her right in the eye. "You wanted power," I said, "and now you have none." She didn't respond. Because she knew it was true, the judge ruled in our favor. Karen was ordered to pay compensation to every single person she had harmed. She was banned from working in law ever again. And worst of all, she was forbidden from ever setting foot in our neighborhood. It was finally over. Karen had lost for good. The day after the trial, the neighborhood held a celebration. People who had once been scared were laughing again. The new homeowner association president stood up and made an announcement. "We are officially renaming our community park," he said. "From now on, it will be called Freedom Park. Because today, we are finally free from Karen." The crowd cheered, and I just smiled. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. Karen was gone. The neighborhood was secure, and my helicopter still parked right in my driveway, where it would always be. Because this was my home, and no homeowner association dictator was ever going to take it from me again. The end.